All right, so now I'm recording. So the idea here that you need to know from this piece of software is that your CPU by default does not run this MIPS, this assembly, because your CPU is not a MIPS CPU. If you remember, we did say that our computers, our general purpose computers, do not have MIPS CPUs. MIPS CPUs are used for kind of specialized computers, not general purpose computers. So maybe, for example, a MIPS CPU could be used. Well, I can tell you where it would be used. It's used maybe in a self-driving computer in a car, like a full self-driving computer in a car, or maybe in some sort of an autopilot system in a car. So that would not be a general purpose computer. That would be kind of a specialized computer that does something very specific. It doesn't do everything. Another example would be, I think at some point they sent a rover. Let me actually Google this one. They sent a rover to maybe the moon. That had a CPU that is actually similar to kind of MIPS. So I'll send you the article here. And also, I didn't know PlayStation used MIPS. I'm kind of just yeah, there is actually MIPS that are used in console games like PlayStation and Nintendo 64. So these are not general purpose computers. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that your computer by default is not able to read these kinds of things. It just doesn't know. Your computer knows how to read assembly in its kind of CPU language. Maybe it's kind of an Intel computer, Intel CPU. Maybe it reads Intel assembly, which of course exists. But that's not what we're studying. We're studying MIPS. And because of that, we need to install a simulator. So a simulator is, again, it's a piece of software. It's gonna mimic the behavior of a CPU, like a MIPS CPU. So we're not gonna do anything complicated with that software yet, but maybe over the course of the next few days or weeks, maybe we'll do something kind of advanced in this software. But for now, we're going to just download it and use, just write basic instructions here. So the simulator, one of the simulators that exist is called Mars MIPS simulator. Excuse me. And this is the one that we're going to be using. So if you just Google Mars MIPS simulator, it'll take you to this page and you can click on download. And when you go to this download page, you can just download this version. Now notice here that the version, this version, actually all the versions that are above this version, above 4, they do require you to download the Java SDK. So if you click here, I'm going to actually open this in another tab, and you simply download the SDK. So depending on your machine. So if it's a Mac, for me it would be probably this one. Yeah, but you may already have it. You may already have that. So I'm not gonna. So I wouldn't say that you should start there. What you should do, probably just download. Click here, and that'll download the file. It's just a single file, and try opening it. and hopefully it opens and you won't have to kind of download the Java SDK. So let me kind of do that. Let me download the file. Okay, I downloaded it. It's just a single file. You don't see it because I'm pausing the sharing here, but it's just a single file, and I'm just gonna open it. And when you open it, if you have a Mac, the best way to open it would be to right click and click on open. The reason why you want to do that is because it'll tell you, when you do that, it'll ask you if you're sure that you want to open it because you downloaded it from kind of a source that's not verified or insecure. And that's because you didn't download this piece of software through the App Store. So, but that should be, hopefully, that shouldn't be a problem, right? So you download the file, just simply right click on the file and click on open, and it'll say, are you sure you want to open it? And you just say yes. As long as you download it from this website, then yeah, you can feel that it's safe. I mean, it will be safe, so you shouldn't worry about anything. And yeah, and this software will open. If you're in Windows, you can just probably double click on it, and I think it's not going to ask you anything. It's just going to open it. So this is how it looks like. Let's kind of familiarize ourselves with this UI very quickly. So what you see here on the right, we have the registers. We have the 32 general purpose registers, and these start at 0 and they end at 31. So from 0 to 31, these are the 32 general purpose registers. We have the name of them and we have the value of them. So again, the names, we haven't seen all of them. We've seen this one, the one that has the name 0. We've seen the ones that have the names from T0 to T7, and we've seen the ones that have the names from S0 to S7. So you can look at that. Just make sure that all of that makes sense to you. There is a question. Let me look at it. Question or note. Because it's from it never prompted me to ask if I was. Did you right click and open, Grace, or did you double click on it? Because if you double click on it, it can't. Okay, so all right, so you have another problem here, which is the Java runtime. So in this case, you do want to go here, download the Java, and that might take a few minutes. After that, try to right click and open it, and yeah, and let me know if you're doing this right now. Let me know in a few minutes if that works. All right, so this is again, these are the registers. You can see that we have 3 registers at the bottom, and these are not part of the general purpose registers. These are special registers. One of them is called PC, the program counter, which we've actually talked about before. And then there is the high and low, and these are used kind of in division. So we don't really want to talk about these. Actually, we're not going to talk about any of those 3 anytime soon. Even though we've already talked about the program counter, we're not going to be talking about it right now. So if you want to write code, you have to create a new file. And you have to, so you can click here, that'll create a new file. And you need to save it. Before you run any code, you have to save it. So I'm going to save it here. I'm going to save it on my, I'm going to save it here in my folder. Okay. Now you can write code. So let me ask you actually, how to write code to do something specific. So can you tell me how to, first of all, what's the value of T0? Can you tell me what the value of T0 is by looking at this? What's the value of T0? 8. No. The value of T0 is not 8. It's 0. Then the number of it is 8. So the number of the register T0 is 8. But really the content of it or the value of it, maybe I should have said content because value could be misleading. Okay, Grace, you fixed it. That's great. I'm glad to hear. So Anthony, yeah, the content of it is 0. Let's just use content as opposed to value. Now, my question to you is, can you give me MIPS code that will put the value 50, or let's say 20, that will put the value 20 in T0? Think about that for a few seconds. I'd like to put 20 in T0. How can I do that? Okay, two answers that are good. Not the best, but very good answers that are correct. Let me first tell you what you guys did. You told me add immediate, T0, T0, and then 20. So this is a really good piece of code. Now, the problem with this code is if I were to come and see it, you know how I'm gonna interpret this? I'm gonna say this code is gonna get the value of T0, which I'm gonna assume that it's kind of important, and it's gonna add 20 to it, and then it's almost like it's gonna increment T0 by 20. So there's a little bit of incrementing that's taking place, and I'm gonna start kind of speculating that this is kind of important because we're adding 20 to the existing value. So Katie, you're right. The better answer would be to actually use 0 here. Because this one is more clear. This one's less ambiguous. If I see this, I would say, okay, that just puts 20 in T0. What you had initially would work right now because the value of T0 is 0. But again, it's kind of vague a little bit. So let's do that. So this is good. Okay, can someone give me code that puts the value -5 in T3? Okay, all right. Okay, that's good. Add immediate T3, 0, -5. Okay. Now, can someone give me code that will add the value of T0 to T3 and put it in S0? Okay, let me repeat the question. The question is, I'd like to add the value of T0 to T3 and put the result in S0. Do you want, I can write it here, and it's good because I can introduce comments. This is how you comment in the simulator here. So I'd like to add the content of T0 to T3 and put it in S0. So Grace, you're saying add T, or rather S0, T0, T3. That's correct. So this is correct. I'm going to add the content of T0 to the content of T3, and I'm going to put the result in S0. So what should be in S0 after I execute the code? Okay, 15. That's good. All right, so let's execute the code. Now, when you execute the code, you have to assemble. That's really the right term. And when you do that, you have two options. One of them is to run line by line, and the other one is to run everything at once. I like to do line by line because that'll allow us to look at the registers and see how the values change. So I'm going to go to the next line. Now, this highlighted line hasn't been executed yet. When I go to this one, which has the number 1, it'll execute only one line. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to look at T0, and I'm going to see what the value of T0 is going to be. In fact, let's look at T0 right now. T0 has the number 8, we know that, and it has the value 0. So let's go one line. Okay, I just went one line. Notice it's actually highlighted here. Notice that T0 right now has the value 20, which makes sense, right? Because you added 20 to 0 and you put it in T0. So that's perfect. Let's see how that's gonna look with respect to T3 after I execute this line. So I'm gonna go also one line, and you can see T3 right now has the value -5. Perfect, that's kind of what we expect. And let's do another one. And you can see here, the value of S0 is 15, just like how you guys told me. So things seem to be working exactly how we expect them to work. So this is great. And if you go, of course, to the next line, that's it. I mean, that would be it. It'll say something here, program is finished running, and that's good. That's what we want for now. Yeah, so when you create a new file, this is a note for everyone. When you create a new file, make sure that you save the file, because without saving the file, you cannot assemble. You have to save it. So you can do Command S or just File, Save, and then you can save it to a file, and then you can run it. So Grace, you're saying you cannot edit it. Okay, so what could happen is this window, sometimes it's kind of, you see, this is one problem that I kind of dislike about this simulator, but sometimes this window would be kind of shrunk, and you would have to kind of play with those buttons, maybe try to kind of shrink this one, try to do some of that, or maybe try to, if there's a, so try to point your cursor at the top and try to kind of move the border of this bottom side, bottom portion of, were you able to do it? It does take a little bit of, no, not yet. Okay. Okay. Maybe after we finish the class, maybe you can share your screen and I can help you kind of resolve that. All right. So let's go back to my file. Okay, let's do just one other. Actually, let's do 2 examples, or maybe 2 more lines, and then we can finish this portion and start a new portion that talks about new instructions. So here I'm going to say sub, for example. I can sub S0. By the way, something that's actually very important that I should have mentioned is that there's no sub immediate. This does not exist. And if it does, it's not a pure instructions. It's not a pure instruction. So we talked about this last week, kind of this idea of pure instructions. And we're going to be using pure instructions in this course. And this is not a pure instruction. I mean, you don't need that. How can you subtract 20? Can someone tell me how to subtract 20, the immediate 20, without using sub immediate? Like, let's say I ask you to subtract 20. So Anthony's saying you can do add immediate with -20. That's absolutely right. So if I want to subtract 20 from S0, I can just say add immediate, and I can say S0, S0, -20. That's going to subtract 20 from S0, and it's going to put it in S0. And then maybe I can say Sub is zero, is zero. Let's say, for example, T3. So that's actually good. Think about this for a few seconds and tell me what you think is3 is going to be. So the question is, what is the value of S3 after executing the code above? Think about that for a few seconds. All right. So Grace is saying -10. Any other answers? Anthony is thinking maybe 0. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, it's good that we have two different answers. How about the rest? Is it -10 or is it 0? 0. Okay. All right. So let's actually do it line by line. I haven't actually thought about this, but I think it's a -10. I mean, I haven't really traced it in my head, but I think it'll be -10. We can try. Maybe actually, yeah. I mean, I haven't. Let's do it together. It's going to be easy to kind of think through. All right. So here we're going to put 20 in T0 and -5 in T3. So let's do these two lines. These two lines are not really that important. I mean, they're actually very important, but we kind of have done that before. So I'm adding T0 to T3. That's going to give me 15. We've actually done that. So S0 is right now 15. And right now I'm subtracting 20 because I'm adding the immediate -20. So that's going to be -5. So you have 15, you subtract 20, you end up with -5. And right now you're subtracting T3. What's in T3? T3 is -5. So when you subtract -5, that's like adding 5. So right now from -5, when you add 5 to it, you end up with 0. So 0 is the right answer. So you can see here S0 is 0. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, or if you have any questions. You thought that S0 was currently equal to 15. At some point, it was equal to 15. At some point, it was. So let's do it again. I'm gonna let me give me 1 second, guys. I do need to swap my headphones. All right. Okay, let me do something. Okay. So I'm gonna do it one more time. So Grace, when we get to here, when we execute the first 3 lines, we do have 15 in S0. So that's correct. But then you say add immediate 15 -20. So you're adding -20, to 15. So you end up with -5. So if I execute this line, S0, it's going to be -5 because you have 15, you add -20. Yeah, you do that. And then here you subtract -5, which is kind of like adding 5. So you end up with 0. Yeah. All right. So I think this is good. I think what we should do now, we should stop the recording and start a new one because we're going to talk about new instructions right now. And then some of those instructions we'll be using in MIPS, in the, excuse me, the Mars, the simulator, and some we may not. So we're not going to always be coding here in the simulator, but every once in a while we'll do that. So let me stop the recording and start a new one.